Good morning, dolphins, and now we're on to the next part of the unit, the solar system. This is probably not only my favorite part of the unit, but it'll probably be a lot of your favorite parts of the unit too, because in this section we're going to talk about the planets, the sun, the moon, and all kinds of other objects found in space. In our second slide, we're going to talk about the solar system and what does it consist of. In our solar system, we have one star. That star is our sun. That is what all of the planets orbit around, including ourselves. We have 8 planets in our orbit system. As most of you already know, we used to have 9, but poor little Pluto got denoted and is no longer a planet. Therefore, we only have 8. The next item that we have are moon or moons. Some planets have 0 moons. Some planets have 1 moon, like the planet Earth. And then other planets have more than 1 moon, like Jupiter and Saturn. The fourth one is the asteroids. Where are these asteroids found? Most of the asteroids are found in the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt actually separates the inner planets from the outer planets. The inner planets are our rocky planets. Our outer planets are our gaseous planets. The next thing we have are meteors. Meteors are basically asteroids that have gone into Earth's atmosphere. It doesn't mean that it's landed. It just kind of goes through the clouds. So once these meteors actually hit the Earth, it's no longer called a meteor. It's called a meteorite. And then we have comets. Comets are basically icy structures that basically fly through space, and as it gets closer to the sun, it looks like it has a tail. Then we have gas and dust. That is really what a lot of space is made of. But you know what space is really made of? Empty space. So you think, oh wow, we have all these things out in outer space. But in actuality, a majority of it is empty space. In this slide, we're going to get into more specifics about the sun. As most of you already know, the sun is our major source of both heat and light. Obviously, in the summertime, when we are tilted towards the sun, we have a lot of heat. When we're tilted away from the sun, we have our winter, and we don't get as much heat. And again, light. Without the sun, we wouldn't have day and night. Everything in our solar system is under the direct influence of the sun's gravitational pull. If we did not have the sun, then we would not be orbiting around it. And if we're not orbiting, we would be floating in space, obviously meaning that we probably would not exist because we have to have the right amount of sunlight, the right amount of heat in order to survive. In this slide, we're going to talk about the planets. The planets are the largest object in our solar system, of course, not including the sun, because the sun is obviously the largest. Now, planets revolve around the sun with known frequencies. What does that mean, known frequencies? Remember when we talked about waves, we talked about the frequency of a wavelength. Basically, it's how many waves pass in a certain amount of time. Well, with this, it's almost the same thing, except for instead of looking at waves, we're looking at how long does it take for planets to orbit around the sun. So, for example, we know that Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. Therefore, it orbits in 88 Earth days. Now, as we move further out, the frequency is also going to change, because if you think about it, if you're going around something, if you're close to it, you can go around it quickly. If you are at the far end of it, it's going to take you longer to revolve around it. So, for example, Earth. Earth revolves around the sun in 365.4 Earth days. So, obviously, the further out you go, the longer the frequency is going to be. Now, all these planets revolve around the sun in a nearly circular orbit, which means it's elliptical. It's not a perfect circle, it's a little bit more ovular. Now let's talk about the inner planets. The inner planets are known as terrestrial, which also means rocky. So these planets are made of rock. There are 4 planets that are inner planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Mercury, have you guys ever heard of the mnemonic device, "My very educated mother just served us nachos"? Well, that's the easiest way to memorize the planets in our solar system. So Mercury, my; Venus, very; educated; Earth, Mars. Those are your 4 inner planets. These planets are a lot smaller than the outer planets. They are rocky. They have few moons. They have absolutely no rings. But they do have craters, rocks, mountains, and they go through different predictable patterns. So earthquakes, weather patterns, erosions, volcanoes, and so on. Now let's talk about the outer planets. The outer planets are known as the gas giants. What does that mean? Or why do they call them the gas giants? Well, what do you know? It's because they're all made of gases. There are 4 major outer planets: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. If you remember, we talked about the mnemonic device, "My very educated mother just served us nachos." Well, now we're getting to the last part. Just served us nachos. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. These planets are much larger than the inner planets. They are gaseous. All of them have rings, and they have many, many moons. There are also storms and volcanoes on these outer planets. So just like all of the inner planets have predictable patterns, guess what? So do the outer planets. In this slide, you can see that we're comparing the planets. So if you take a look, it says relative size of the planets in the solar system. You can see from the picture the sun is humongous compared to the inner planets versus the outer planets. Also, if you take a look, you can see how small the inner planets are and how large the outer planets are. We also have Pluto in there. Pluto is no longer considered a planet. Part of the reason why Pluto is not considered a planet anymore is because of the fact that it is so small and it does collect things like other rocks. It actually now has about 3 to 5 moons, which is unusual for a planet that size to have. So if you take a look, there's also a website underneath there. Go ahead and go to that website. It's very interactive, and I think you'll enjoy going and playing with that. In this slide, we're going to talk about moons. Our moon orbits the Earth along with many artificial satellites and debris. Satellites means anything that orbits around another object. So, for example, the moon orbits around us. So the moon is our satellite. We orbit around the sun, so therefore we are the satellite for this, we are satellites to the sun. Some planets have a variety of moons and even flat rings of rock and ice, particles orbiting around them. Some of these moons show evidence of geological activities. Our moon actually does not have any geological activity. However, Jupiter's moon and some of Saturn's moons do. In this next slide, we're going to talk about our home sweet home. Yeah, go planet Earth. Planet Earth has an atmosphere. An atmosphere is basically a layer of Earth. That layer of air is made up of many layers of gases that surround the Earth's surface. This layer actually helps keep humans safe from sun's radiation. If we did not have this atmosphere, then we would not be able to be protected. Now, what are some of the ingredients for life? We have 3 main ingredients for life. Number 1, we have to have liquid water. Without water, we would not survive, especially since our body is made up of mostly water. We also need a breathable atmosphere. Without that breathable atmosphere, we would not be able to survive, so we need that oxygen. The third thing is to have the suitable amount of sunshine or sunlight. Therefore, if you take a look at the planets, our planet is at the perfect spot. It gets just the right amount of sunlight. Mercury, Venus, they're too close to the sun. Therefore, that would not be suitable for us to live in. It's not suitable for humans. Mars is far away, but yet we're trying to go live there. However, we can't live there unless we create some sort of dome or bubble because of the fact that it will not get the right amount of sunlight. There is not a breathable atmosphere, and there is not liquid water. Right now they have, or they think there are, ice caps, which means we can get water, and we could make a breathable atmosphere with a dome, and we could get the right amount of sunlight if we use this dome. So, who knows? On this slide, we're going to talk about the planet comparison video. There's this awesome video on YouTube. I'm going to put it right under this slideshow on the Google site so that you can just click on it and watch it. However, if you want to, I have also placed the Google site website, right, or the YouTube website right there so that you can go to it on your own. I'm also going to put the interactive comparison, the planet comparison website that I told you about earlier. That's also going to be underneath this slideshow. So please go to those, enjoy them, take a look at them, and so on and so forth. For our last slide, I'm actually giving you an exit ticket. What that means is to make sure that you watch the whole slideshow and that you listen to this whole presentation. You have to complete these 4 questions. What I need you to do is I need you on a separate sheet of paper to answer these 4 questions to turn in to me on Monday. This is what's going to count for your flip notes. Number 1, name 3 things in our solar system. We went over 8 things in this slideshow. You only have to name 3. Number 2, what is the difference between the inner planets and the outer planets? Number 3, give 1 to 2 reasons why Earth can sustain life. We talked about 3. You only have to name 1 to 2. Number 4, what holds the solar system together and how does it affect everything around it? I hope you guys enjoyed the flip notes. I will see you guys Monday, and we'll discuss all these notes then.